What if I told you one man survived 2 atomic bomb explosions? His name was Tsutomu Yamaguchi. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to dive straight into his absolutely unbelievable but entirely true survival story. On August 6, 1945, he was in Hiroshima when the first atomic bomb exploded. He survived with injuries and somehow traveled back home. But here's the really shocking part. 3 days later, he was in Nagasaki when the second atomic bomb was dropped. Amazingly, he survived again and lived until the age of 93. Out of millions of people affected by the war, he became one of the very few officially recognized survivors of both bombings.
I mean, just imagine surviving the deadliest weapon in history twice. Picture this. You're sitting in an office, completely bandaged and battered from an atomic blast, trying to convince your totally skeptical boss that it actually happened right as a second atomic bomb detonates right outside your window.
You know, this really sounds like a movie script, but this is the reality of Tsutomu Yamaguchi. In August 1945, he was just a 29-year-old Marine engineer who experienced the unimaginable. His story is one of sheer, staggering defiance of the odds.
Let's go back to August 6, Hiroshima.
So, the morning actually started off completely mundane. Yamaguchi was wrapping up a 3-month business trip designing oil tankers for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. At 8 a.m., he's heading to the train station to finally go home, but he realizes he forgot his personal ID seal and turns back. At 8:15, he hears a B-29 bomber overhead, looks up, and sees a small parachute dropping. Seconds later, the bomb detonates just 580 meters above the ground.
He later described that initial flash as the lightning of a huge magnesium flare. Because he was less than 2 miles from the hypocenter, the sheer force of the little boy bomb literally sucked him right into the air, throwing him violently into a nearby potato patch.
The immediate aftermath was just devastating. His left eardrum was ruptured, he was temporarily blinded, and he suffered severe radiation burns over the entire top half of his body. Despite this absolute agony, he managed to spend a fitful night in an air raid shelter with 2 surviving colleagues.
By the next day, his survival instinct kicked into high gear, but escaping the nightmare was its own horror. To reach the train station, Yamaguchi actually had to swim through a river filled with floating corpses. He finally boarded a train, truly believing he was leaving the terror behind and heading towards safety.
But then we get to August 9th, Nagasaki.
See, home for Yamaguchi was Nagasaki. He had traveled directly from one ground zero to another, and the parallels here are astonishing. On August 6th in Hiroshima, he was hit by the little boy uranium bomb exactly 3 kilometers from the hypocenter. On August 9 in Nagasaki, he was hit by the Fat Man plutonium bomb, also exactly 3 kilometers from the hypocenter.
Despite severe burns swathed in thick bandages, he incredibly reported to work at the Mitsubishi office. At 11:02 a.m., his boss was actively questioning his sanity, asking him, how could a single bomb destroy an entire city? And at that exact moment, another blinding white flash engulfed the room.
Yamaguchi later recalled the chilling feeling, saying, "I thought the mushroom cloud had followed me from Hiroshima." He was thrown to the ground as the shockwave completely shattered the office. Now, thanks to the city's mountainous terrain and a reinforced stairwell, he survived the immediate blast, but his bandages were violently torn off, exposing his raw skin to intense radiation all over again.
While he survived the blast at work, you're probably wondering about his family, right? Well, miraculously, his wife and baby son survived the total destruction of their home, and the reason why is wild. His wife had actually gone out to buy burn ointment for the injuries he brought back from Hiroshima. When the Nagasaki bomb hit, she and the baby had taken shelter in a tunnel. Think about that. His Hiroshima injuries literally saved their lives in Nagasaki.
This brings us to the Niju Hibakusha.
Let's break down what these terms actually mean. Hibakusha is the Japanese term for a person affected by exposure to radioactivity from the atomic bombings. Hundreds of thousands of people fall into this category. But Niju Hibakusha translates to double survivor, someone who experienced both the Hiroshima and the Nagasaki blasts.
While historical records suggest about 165 people may have experienced both bombings, it wasn't until 2009 that Tsutomu Yamaguchi became the very first, and at the time, the only, person officially recognized by the Japanese government as a survivor of both ground zeros. Just one.
But surviving the physical blasts was really only the beginning. The long-term health toll on his family was immense. Yamaguchi battled cataracts, deafness, leukopenia, and eventual stomach cancer.
His wife suffered from radiation poisoning and later died of kidney and liver cancer. Their son, Katsutoshi, the baby in the tunnel, tragically died of cancer at age 59. That double exposure haunted the family for decades.
Let's look at his final years, his legacy of peace. For much of his life, Yamaguchi lived quietly. He worked as a translator for the U.S. occupation forces, he became a teacher, and he went back to engineering. He raised his daughters and kept his trauma mostly private. But in his later years, he finally broke his silence. He wrote a book, featured in documentaries, and dedicated his final years to anti-nuclear activism. After surviving the literal impossible, he lived to the remarkable age of 93, passing away in 2010.
Addressing the United Nations in 2006, a wheelchair-bound Yamaguchi explained exactly why he finally spoke out. He said, "It was my destiny that I experienced this twice, and I am still alive to convey what happened." He never really saw himself as a victim, but as a messenger with an absolute duty to share the terrifying reality of nuclear weapons with the rest of us.
Which brings us to a really chilling final question. If one man can survive the deadliest weapon in history twice to warn us, will humanity actually heed his warning before a third is ever dropped? Tsutomu Yamaguchi's story is a stark reminder of history's darkest moments and a really profound plea for a peaceful future. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and hey, follow FactPeek for more unbelievable facts every day. I'll see you next time.